We've seen so far how great QUBES is at improving our security. It improves our security through the different security domains by isolating them inside individual virtual machines that use their own resources. We saw how cool the disposable and the vault virtual machines are, and more. All of these features make a really secure operating system, and they also improve our user experience and force the users to use their operating system in a more secure manner. So that's the security part covered, but we still haven't covered how to become anonymous and how to improve our privacy while surfing the internet using QUBES, because all of the virtual machines that we've seen so far access the internet directly and therefore are vulnerable to trackers and so on. Now, all of these operating systems use the same networking virtual machine, which is the sysnet right here. Like I said, this routes the traffic directly to the internet, and therefore they're not anonymous or private. However, QUBES also offer another networking service, which is the Use WHONIX. This is a networking service that forces the traffic to go through the Tor network. Therefore, when a machine is configured to use the Use WHONIX as the gateway, this machine's traffic will be forced to go through the Tor network, therefore improving our privacy and anonymity. Now, by default, we have a domain called Anonymity. This is something that I haven't covered so far. And as usual, because this is a domain, this means that this is a virtual machine designed for us to use to carry out day-to-day tasks, to carry out normal tasks. And this virtual machine is a template of the WHONIX workstation right here, and is configured to use the Use WHONIX as its gateway. Therefore, all of the traffic going out of the Anonymity virtual machine will be forced to go through the Tor network. Let me show you real quick before we run this machine. So I'm going to go to my QUBES manager, and in here, you'll notice that we have the Anonymity right here. This is the virtual machine that we can use for our day-to-day use because it is a domain. And if you look under the NetVM right here, you'll see that it is configured to use the Use WHONIX as its network virtual machine, which means that all of the traffic in this virtual machine will be forced to go to the Use WHONIX, which will force that traffic to go through the Tor network. Now, if you look at all of the other virtual machines, you'll see that they're configured to use the Sys firewall. For example, the work right here, you'll see that it is configured to use the Sys firewall as its networking virtual machine. And if we follow this, we have Sys firewall right here. You'll see this will redirect the traffic to the internet. So any traffic in my work domain and all of the other virtual machines will go to the Sys firewall and then to the sysnet and to the internet. Therefore, it is not anonymous and it's not private. So let's go ahead and use this virtual machine. So we're just going to go again, as usual, to the virtual machine we want to start, which is Anonymity. And you can see a list of all of the programs that you can run inside this virtual machine. First one is an IRC chat client that you can use to communicate over IRC if you want. You got your settings, you get your file manager, you have the Tor browser, which we've been using inside different operating systems. So using it in here is identical. You have a wizard that will allow you to download and update Tor. Using this is very simple. You can just click it to run it. It'll check what's the latest version. And if there is a new version, you can install it from here. You can run the WHONIX check right here to check the whole WHONIX operating system, the whole WHONIX virtual machine. Make sure that it's up to date, make sure that it is configured and it's running as expected. This actually runs the first time you run Tails. If you remember, when we got the WHONIX wizard, then we went through it in the first basics lecture of this section. So there's no need to run this again. And you also have your terminal where you can execute commands inside this virtual machine. So right now, let's just go ahead and run the Tor browser. Obviously, as usual, this will start the WHONIX virtual machine first, and then as soon as it starts, it will launch an instance of the Tor browser. And perfect, as you can see, we have the Tor browser running inside the Anon WHONIX domain. Notice the color, it's different than all of the other domains. Again, this will help you to easily know which domain you're working in or which virtual machine. And you can navigate to check.tor.com or just click on the IP check in here. And you'll see that this machine is configured to use the Tor browser properly. So we are accessing the internet through Tor. So right now you can go ahead and access Tor hidden services from this browser. You can also change its settings in here from the same places that you're used to. So this is the exact same browser that we're using. The only difference is right now it's running through its own isolated virtual machine. And as usual, if this virtual machine gets compromised or hacked in any way, it is completely isolated, so it is very difficult and highly unlikely that the hacker will be able to exit this and compromise other virtual machines. Now, just to confirm, I already have a web browser here running in my work domain, and let's just go to Google and check what's my IP. You'll see that my IP, my actual real IP in here, is completely different than the IP that we see in here inside the Tor browser, because inside the WHONIX virtual machine, like I said, everything's being forced to go through the Tor network, whereas my work virtual machine, if we look at the QUBES VM in here, the work virtual machine is using the sys firewall as its virtual machine, which forwards data directly to the sysnet and therefore goes directly to the internet. Now, another really cool virtual machine that we have in here is the disposable WHONIX workstation. So we already covered the normal disposable virtual machine, and we saw how this can be very useful to run untrusted applications, untrusted files, or open untrusted websites, because like we said, every time you start a disposable virtual machine, QUBES create a completely new virtual machine, and then when you stop it, this virtual machine is completely destroyed. Therefore, even if it contained any malware, this malware will be destroyed along with the actual virtual machine. And because this is a completely isolated virtual machine, it is very difficult to compromise the other machines. So right here, we have another disposable virtual machine. The only difference between the WHONIX and the Fedora one, the WHONIX one, as the name suggests, will force all of the traffic to go through the WHONIX gateway, which forces all the traffic to go through the Tor network. So you can think of this like a disposable virtual machine that will force all the traffic through the Tor network. So you can use this virtual machine to run any untrusted darknet links, and there are a lot of untrusted darknet links, so this is very, very useful. And you can also use it to run any untrusted files that you get through the darknet. Now, usually you shouldn't trust any files you get even on the clear net, but if you're receiving files or if you want to open files that you download from the darknet, then you should definitely run it inside a disposable virtual machine. Now, using this is similar to any other virtual machine. You can run the application that you want from here, and because it is disposable, like I said, when you click on an application, a virtual machine will be created specifically to run this application only, and when you close the application, the whole virtual machine will be destroyed. Now, with these two virtual machines and with the way QUBES is structured, you can do so much more. You can actually create a different virtual machine for every identity that you want to use on the darknet. So for example, you can have a number of domains similar to the way we have work and personal and untrusted here that all go through the clearnet. You can have a number of virtual machines that force their traffic through the WHONIX gateway through Tor and use each one of them for every identity you use on the darknet. Or, for example, use one of them for chat, use one of them to only include your crypto wallets, and use the other for surfing the internet or for surfing the darknet. So you can really structure this any way you want, and doing that is very, very simple. Let me show you. So again, you need to go back to your QUBES manager, and all you have to do is right-click the machine that you want to clone or create a copy of. And in this case, let's say you want to make a copy of our Anon WHONIX, because this is the virtual machine that forces traffic through the Tor network. And all you have to do is right-click it and click on Clone Cube. This will create a new virtual machine that is identical to Anon WHONIX, and then you can use this for any other reason you want. So this is really, really cool and can be tailored to fit so many scenarios and so many uses. Now, installing software on the anonymous WHONIX cube is slightly different than installing software on the other virtual machines, because the others were based on Fedora, and as we've seen, Fedora comes with its nice package installer. So if we go on the personal or on the work, they're all based on Fedora. So if we want to install something on any of them, we go to the Fedora template and we click on software. This will launch a really nice graphical interface that allow us to install software, and anything we install in here will become available to work, personal, untrusted, and so on, because they're all based on the Fedora 30. Now, because the Anon WHONIX and the disposable WHONIX that we use are based on the, if you look in here, you'll see they're based on the WHONIX 15. You'll see that installing software on the WHONIX 15 is a little bit different than Fedora because it does not have a nice package manager, a nice graphical interface. Therefore, we're going to have to install software from terminal. Now, don't worry about this. I'm going to take you through it right now. If you've done any of my other courses, then this will be very easy and very familiar to you, but I still suggest you watch this lecture as you might learn a trick or two. Now, to do this, we're going to have to, let me minimize this. We're going to have to go to the template that we want to install software on. And like I said, there is no graphical user interface that allows us to install software. Therefore, we're going to have to do it from the terminal. Okay, now this will start a nice terminal for us. I'm just going to clear its screen. And the first thing that you want to do when you start this terminal is update the sources from which you can download packages and software. We need to do this with admin privileges. So to run a command with admin privileges, we have to first type sudo and then type the command that we want to run. And in my case, I want to update the sources like I said, so the command will be apt-get update. So apt-get is the program that we use to install software on Debian-based operating systems such as WHONIX, and what we want to do is literally just update the sources from which we can download software. We're not updating anything, we're literally just updating the list of packages that we can install. Once this is done, we can search for packages and install them. So let's say, for example, you want to install Pigeon. If you remember, we used Pigeon before for instant messaging in Tails. So let's say you want to install this. To do that, first of all, let's say you don't really remember the program name, or you want to search because you're not sure what the name of the Pigeon package. So let's say you want to search for this program. We're going to do sudo again, and we're going to do apt catch, and we're going to say I want to search for a package called Pigeon. Now this will list all of the packages that has the word Pigeon in them. So you'll see the package that you want, plus a lot of other packages, maybe related, maybe not even related. So for example, let's say you're looking for a chat program or messaging program, you can just do apt catch search message. In my example, as you can see right here, I have the name of the package that I want to install, or the name of the program, Pigeon, and I also have the description of it, which is a graphical multi-protocol instant messaging client. So all I need to do is basically install a package called Pigeon. Now to do that, again, we're going to do sudo because we need to run this under admin. We're going to use the same program, apt-get, and instead of updating the sources, we're going to say I want to install a program called Pigeon. Very, very simple. We're going to hit enter. And because I've actually downloaded and installed this before, it's automatically downloading and installing it for me without asking me. But for you, if you're installing software or a package for the first time, it's going to ask you to confirm, and you're just going to have to type Y and hit enter to continue the process. Now, once this is done, Pigeon is installed now on my template virtual machine, my WHONIX workstation 15. Like I said, we never use the templates to run the actual software. We only use them if we want to update or install software. So this is done. This is installed. We're happy with it. I'm going to close it, and I'm going to shut down my WHONIX workstation. wait for it to fully shut down. And once it is off, I'm going to go to my QUBES manager again. I'm going to go to the machine that I want to use the program from. So for example, the Anon WHONIX right here, we're going to go to its settings. So you can click on this, or we can right click and go to settings. We're going to go to applications. And as you can see, we have the Pigeon Instant Manager available for us in here. Now you want to make sure that the machine is off when you're doing this. Otherwise you won't see it. If you don't see it, try to click on refresh applications and it should become available. Now once we have it, we're going to click on it here to make it available in the drop down menu in here. And we're going to click on OK. So now I can go in here and I can go to my Anon WHONIX. And I have Pigeon Instant Messenger right here. So I can click on it, wait for the virtual machine to start, and it'll start Pigeon for me once the virtual machine is working. And perfect. As you can see, now I have Pigeon working inside my Anon WHONIX domain, and we can use it exactly the same that we learned with Tails. You click on add, you create your user, or you log into your existing account, and then you start communicating, sending messages, and so on. Now, in this example, obviously, I literally just installed Pigeon, but you can follow the exact same steps if you want to install any other program or any other package. Now, I highly recommend you get comfortable with using the terminal and installing programs through the terminal through apt-get. But if you really want to have an easy way of installing programs, a graphical user interface, then you can install a program called Synaptic, which basically interacts with apt-get and allows you to install software through a nice graphical user interface, similar to what we did when we were installing programs inside the Fedora 30 virtual machine. Now to do this, we'll have to install Synaptic, we'll have to install this graphical interface. So let me turn off my WHONIX machine again. And we're going to go back to the terminal of our template, which is the WHONIX workstation. And we're going to clear the screen. And this time, instead of doing apt-get install Pigeon, we're going to install a program called Synaptic. We're going to hit enter. It's asking me if I really want to do this. I'm going to say yes, please install it for me. And like I said, this is literally just a graphical user interface that allows us to install packages if you really don't want to use the terminal. Perfect, now it's installed. And usually we don't use any programs inside the template virtual machines. Like I said, we use them inside the domains. This is what we did literally with Pigeon and with everything else. But because Synaptic, the program that we installed, is a program that allows us to install other packages and other programs, it only makes sense to use it inside the template so that all of the other virtual machines that are based on this template would inherit these programs. Therefore, we'd want to use this inside our template virtual machine. So back to the Cube Manager, we're going to select our template, which is the WHONIX Workstation 15. We're going to go to its settings, applications. We're going to scroll down. We're going to look for the package manager. We're going to add it here to the right. We're going to click on OK. And now if we go to the drop down menu of it in here, you'll see we have a new entry, which will allow us to launch this graphical interface for the package manager for apt-get. We're going to close this warning, and perfect. As you can see, we have a program that has a nice graphical user interface. You can use the search button in here to search, and then if you want to install any package, you literally just tick it in here from the list, mark for installation, and mark, and then click on apply to apply the changes and install the package. Like I said, I highly recommend getting used to using the terminal. It is much better, and if you know how to use it, you can use it across multiple platforms. You're also installing less packages, so there is less attack surface. And finally, there are people reporting issues with Synaptic inside WHONIX. They're saying it creates a lot of problems. So you can see whatever suits you best and just go with it. Now finally, before we wrap this up, I'm going to close this, I'm going to quit. I just want to show you how you would update any virtual machine or any template. I've touched on it before, so you can actually start the template, whether it's a Fedora or Debian, or even if it's another operating system, literally look up how that operating system gets updated and follow the steps. So usually for Linux, you do apt-get update, apt-get upgrade, and then apt-get dist upgrade to upgrade for another distro if there is a new release. Alternatively, you can actually just do it in here from your QUBES manager. For example, again, let's say you want to update your WHONIX workstation. Right click, click on update. This will automatically start the virtual machine if it's off. In my case, it was already on. It'll start the terminal. It'll check the sources. And once it gets a list of all the updates, all you have to do in here, it's asking us to confirm. You'd hit Y, hit enter, and it'll update it for you.